From the land of conjurers flying through the internet to your device like a UAP, hauntingly unexplained and downright weird. This is the Witching Hours, and we're ready to take off in the flash of an eye. Good evening to one and all, wherever and whenever you are listening to the program. I am Giant of the Frost, and joining me, as always, is the medium Ginny Lee. How are you doing, Ginny?
I think I'm okay. How are you?
Want to get weird?
Of course.
All right. Well, let's get started. It might be a weird night.
Weirder the
We'll
better.
see how it goes. Yeah. So we'll see what's going on.
It'd be
Welcome
real
in,
weird.
everybody. Welcome in, all of you. So glad to see you all again on this Thursday night. It's always, it's like my time of the week to like with Team Weird, So we get to go. I hope you guys are having a great week. It's been a snowy mess kind of week here. Kind of snowy, kind of rainy, kind of icy. So wherever you are, I hope that you're having that the weather is, you're hanging in there. I know probably some people up in, north of us got pretty decent amount of snowfall.
Yes.
So yeah, I know Hoaxer's probably getting quite a bit of snow up there. CMC's got plenty of snow. I know that up in Maine, they've been getting absolutely tons of snowfall up there. So
Shadow Max was streaming his snow the other day.
Yeah. So I hope you guys are hanging in there no matter what the weather is. Winter's not over yet. We got some time, and supposedly more storms coming next week. So
Groundhog safe.
Old Phil was right this time, huh? Maybe.
Yeah. What was the other names from last time? Oh, there's some funny ones.
We had the tortoise. What was the tortoise, like Shelley or Maxine the tortoise?
The tortoise, yeah.
They had some good names in there.
Chuck, wasn't there a Chuck? There's a lot of great names last
there were
week.
some good ones.
That was a good one.
That might wind up on highlight reel. That news story was pretty good. So So anyway, we're excited to be back again for another Thursday, another Witching Hours. We have some stuff to talk about tonight. Maybe we can get to that in a little bit. But I guess, Jenny, do you want to go ahead and start with the news?
Yes. Sorry, I was laughing at Hoaxers because Keisha said she needed pictures of his snow, and he said to just look it up on Google. Hoaxers.
I mean, it's all the same, right? I mean,
not to Keisha.
Yep, there we go. Okay. So first thing I want to do tonight is start off with a news article, but I want to play a little bit of the news just so we have a chance to go over it.
Okay. If you must.
Yeah, just this one little part here.
Okay.
When our founding fathers stood against tyranny, they did not merely oppose taxes. They defended the sacred idea of individual sovereignty. They declared that no government, agency, or title could infringe upon the freedoms of speech, religion, thought, and the pursuit of truth. For too long, the American spirit has been dimmed by a veil of secrecy, by a government that has grown too comfortable in the shadows, denying us the transparency we deserve. But today, we stand at the dawn of a new era where the light of truth begins to shine through. A few weeks ago, President Donald Trump made a historic announcement. With the stroke of a pen, he committed to declassifying the files concerning the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a decision not just monumental, but pivotal. It is with profound honor that I have been entrusted by Speaker Mike Johnson and Chairman James Comer to lead the House Oversight Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets. Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files. This task force will be a beacon of bipartisanship. On the Republican side, Representatives Burchett, Boebert,
Are you
Burleson
pausing it there?
will be joining me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I wanted to end it.
Okay.
But we had a news story about it, so I just kind of wanted, if people hadn't been able to, if people hadn't seen that in the news,
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to be able to kind of highlight, because that just came out. Was it 2 days ago now that announcement was made?
I believe so.
Which, for the stuff we talk about here, is important. I try not, we know the rules here. We don't get into too much politics, except for when we're dealing with the paranormal. And
when they're talking about it.
yeah. So, this kind of crosses the line of politics, but I mean, sometimes we just have to trudge over that line when it deals with the things we're interested here, which is things like UFOs or UAPs and the submersible objects and JFK assassination. We haven't had guests on here, but I have reached out to actually the guy you were talking about yesterday, Jenny, is the one that I emailed.
Oh.
The one that has the X-Files name.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, those are things that we would like to talk about. And this is
Morley.
Yeah, Mr. Morley. He's one of the top experts on the files that have been released, has the largest research put together for the JFK assassination.
Wow.
So to me, that's interesting stuff. So we're going to talk about it. So there we go. A task force being put together by Anna Paulina Luna to lead a task force on declassification of JFK assassination records. One other thing they put on there was the Epstein client list. So
and 9/11.
Yeah, we're going to lead a new task force focused on the declassification of federal secrets, including records related to the assassinations of Kennedy, both Kennedys, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer appointed Luna to chair the task force on the declassification of federal secrets. I mean,
Federal
It's
secrets.
a heck of a name there. They are expected to focus on examining the declassification of materials in the public interest, including all those things we talked about: UFOs, COVID-19 origins, September 11th, Epstein. And so lots of stuff that's going to hopefully come out of this.
Maybe.
I
have lots of theories.
Well, we were talking about this the other day, and we said that essentially it looks like we imagined that there were lots and lots and lots of FBI and CIA spending a lot of time shredding documents.
I mean, that's my guess. That's one of my theories, is that they already had started getting rid of all of their documents and they're not going to be able to find anything. Or the second option is that they are going to find a lot of things. And then what?
Well, I feel like if you were going to release the information, now is the time to release it.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about this. The idea that there's so much craziness going on, and this year has been off to such a crazy start, and there's just so much information coming at people right now, 1,000,000 miles an hour, that now would be the time that you could dump information like that into the news cycle, and it would almost just kind of get drowned, to
Maybe.
a certain extent. To a
Depends.
certain extent, it could kind
Depends
of
on
get
what it
drowned out.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's going to come out in drips and drabs. I mean, I'm still a believer that disclosure is kind of a pipe dream.
Yeah.
But, the people who tell me it's not, when people say that it's not a pipe dream, that disclosure can happen, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I can see a window now, because I think stuff's getting ready to fall off a damn cliff, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. So my two theories is either they're not going to really find anything because it's already going to be deleted, shredded, or redacted.
Yeah.
Or they're going to find all kinds of things, so much so that it's going to prove everyone's theories about our distrust in our shadow government. And then Trump can become Emperor Trump. Those are my two theories. It's going to be nothing or a lot.
I saw a medium, and I wish I could give credit to whoever it was. But I wish I could give credit to whoever said it. But I saw something on my feed or something that was like a medium who was talking about him specifically. And I don't want to linger too much on this, but said, like, essentially asking what was his role, like, in all this stuff that's going to happen, and all these things that we're talking about, the shift, which has been a big part of what we've been talking about on this program.
Yeah.
And, it's not good or bad. Like, the role he's playing essentially wasn't good or bad. He was the agent of change.
Yeah.
Like, things are good. That's going to be one of the
vehicles. Like, things have to change. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I really don't, like, I don't, I don't claim to be a prophet. I have no clue. And politically, I don't really care. But it is interesting because to a certain extent, I can see that happening. But
yeah,
there we go. Hopefully we'll get some information. Hopefully this will bring out some stuff related to all of these topics. But we'll see. So let's move on to the next story, which kind of goes along with this one, which is the FBI says it has discovered 2,400 new records related to JFK assassination. The FBI on Tuesday said it had discovered 2,400 new records related to the assassination of former President John F. Kennedy as federal agencies work to comply with Donald Trump's executive order last month to release thousands of files. The FBI said it's working to transfer the records to the National Archives and Records Administration to be included in the declassification process. The federal government in the early 1990s mandated that all documents related to the 22nd of November 1963 assassination be housed in a single collection at the National Archives. And while the vast majority of the collection, over 5 million records, has been made public, researchers estimate that 3,000 files haven't been released, either in whole or in part. The FBI did not say in a statement what kind of information the newly discovered files contain. And the FBI in 2020 opened a central records complex and began a 5 years long effort to ship, electronically inventory, and store closed case files from field offices across the country.
I just imagine them being like, some guy's desk drawer that just retired. And they're like, oh, crap. This was supposed to be put somewhere else a long time ago.
Yeah. Jefferson Morley, vice president of the Mary Farrell Foundation, a repository for files related to the assassination, called the FBI's disclosure of the files refreshingly candid. It shows that the FBI is serious about being transparent, said Morley, who is also editor of the JFK Facts blog.
Morley said it.
Yeah, Morley said it sets a precedent for other agencies to come forward with documents that haven't been turned over to the National Archives. And the story goes on, but 2,400, documents, that's significant.
That was a big desk.
Yeah. And that's something going back to the first story from tonight too, which I don't know if there's any documents to back it up, but Representative Luna was basically insinuating yesterday that there were 2 shooters.
Yeah.
2 gunmen. So we'll see what comes out of that. Next story tonight is asteroids' odds of hitting Earth go up as Webb telescope is tasked with studying potential city killer. An asteroid has a small chance of hitting Earth less than 8 years from now, and astronomers are enlisting the help of NASA's James Webb Space Telescope to study it. Characterized as a potential city killer, the asteroid was first detected in December, and its odds of impacting our planet have increased slightly since then. I just want to say that before we get too fear-mongering here, that it is only a 2% risk right now, but it went up from like a 1% risk. So the space rocket is formally named 2024 YR4. Scientists say it currently carries a 2% risk of making contact with Earth when it eventually reaches this part of the solar system on December 22nd, 2032. Although the asteroid will most likely pass by without issues, those tasked with monitoring its physical attributes and potential have shifted upward the probability of a crash. So the European Space Agency in January placed the asteroid's odds of hitting at roughly 1%. That's been increasing. So right now, astronomers estimate the asteroid is between 40 meters and 90 meters wide, which is roughly 130 to 295 feet wide. So when the slim chance the asteroid does strike Earth, its impacts would be localized. So it wouldn't be something like the dinosaurs that wiped life off the face of the planet. It would be more like a region that would be completely destroyed.
There's only a 2% chance.
2% chance, so low, but significant.
I thought that they had named it City Killer, but then, of course, it has like a letter number name. I'm always making fun of their name things.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The other story I'm going to leave, we were talking about 2 shooters. There was a story today about Representative Luna talking about there being 2 shooters in the JFK assassination attempt. But we're going to switch to a story that was posted in our Discord, which was Oxford scientists say they've achieved quantum teleportation.
Yay.
Researchers at the University of Oxford say they've achieved quantum teleportation, stitching together separate quantum computers to run an algorithm collaboratively across a distance. In a breakthrough they said could lead to powerful quantum supercomputers. The scientists linked 2 quantum processors that were 6.5 feet apart using a photonic network interface. The team, led by Oxford University physics graduate student Dougal Main, hopes the achievement will lay the groundwork for a quantum internet of distributed ultra-secure processors. Our experiments demonstrate that the network distributed quantum information processing is feasible with current technology, principal investigator and Oxford physics professor David Lucas added. But they still have some hurdles to overcome. Scaling up quantum computers remains a formidable technical challenge that will likely require new physics insights as well as an intensive engineering effort over the coming years. So, there's this whole quantum physics thing that we have a problem with because quantum physics don't work with the stuff that we see every day.
Doesn't work with regular physics.
Yeah, but it's a process. Maybe by the time you're like 90, you'll be able to transport over to
maybe next life.
Dublin for a day to have a Guinness or something. I don't know. And the last story for tonight, man driving 130 miles per hour wanted to see his cat. State troopers are accustomed to world-class excuses for people who speed down the highway like they're in a rocket on wheels.
Is this a Florida man story?
Norwalk, Connecticut man.
Oh, was he?
That could be Florida? Joe Cunningham. We're not sure.
It's a Joe.
Man clocked at 130 miles an hour on 395.
Do you have weekend. A cat?
Told the trooper who pulled him over that he was speeding because he wanted to get home to see his cat. State police said in a news release.
That's some serious cat love.
Later, he did fail a field sobriety test.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. That was the good news story tonight. I was having to reach for it, but there we go. Driving
He's
fast to see your cat.
About seeing his cat. Maybe he hadn't seen the cat in a really long time.
Yeah, and that was the news. That was the news.
Ay.
Lots going on. I mean, the news is coming so fast. It's really hard to keep up with. It's like something new every day.
Some of it we try not to talk about either.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. And like we said, we don't really do politics here unless it crosses over with the supernatural, paranormal.
Yep.
And right now, in some cases, it is. So there we go. All right.
And now,
Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He is a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, also known as MUFON, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of more than 30 books and more than 100 articles about UFOs and the paranormal. Several of his books are Amazon UFO bestsellers. His articles have appeared in numerous magazines, including Fate, Atlantis Rising, MUFON, UFO Journal, Nexus, Paranormal Magazine, UFO Magazine, Mysteries Magazine, Ufologist, Phenomena Magazine, Outer Limits Magazine, and more. He has appeared on numerous radio and television programs. His research has been presented in the LA Times, the LA Daily News, the Dallas Morning News, and other newspapers. He has taught classes on various paranormal subjects and lectures across the United States. Please welcome back to the show,
Yay.
Preston Dennett. How are you doing, Preston?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm doing pretty well. How are you guys?
We're good. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
Wonderful. Well, we kind of got started, we're kind of catching the news that we were talking about tonight, Preston. There's a lot going on. Last time you were on, we talked a little bit about the UFO,
hearings.
like the subcommittee hearings. And to me, this just seems like another round of stuff that I don't know will actually turn into anything. But do you have any thoughts on the news that's been coming out?
Well, first, too bad that guy who was looking for his cat couldn't quantum teleport to it. That would have solved some problems.
Yeah,
it really would have.
But no, in all seriousness, I think it's, I'm kind of two minds about what's going on. I'm excited to see so much attention being paid to this subject. And that's really unprecedented to have congressional hearings one after another. Really, there was only two that I can think of through all the decades that this subject has been around at all. So now we've had, I don't know, quite a few. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's really interesting to me to have like Admiral Gallaudet say unequivocally, we need to have action. He was really using strong rhetoric in that recent hearing with Lou Elizondo and, Dr. Rich, I think was his name. Or no, Gold. Oh, I was mad at him. They could be Chinese. No, we know they're not Chinese.
Yeah, traveling like 7,000 miles an hour. Yeah.
And it's really interesting to hear, them saying, well, some of these craft might be alive. That was something that has never come up in a congressional hearing, but I hear that from contactees all the time. So these are kind of little steps forward. I was really mad at, just going to that one particular hearing. When they were all asked, what do you think UFOs are? And I swear they reminded me of 5-year-old children. And all of them kind of just said, I don't know.
Yeah.
Which, I don't believe. I think that's disingenuous.
Yes.
I mean, I kind of get that they're not willing to put their reputations on the line and say, it's ET. But I think we have enough information to say that it is ET.
I have to agree with you, Preston. I get the same feeling when I'm watching the committee hearings, because they'll do that. They'll say, well, we know it's not ours. We know that it doesn't come from the United States, and we know that no other nations have this kind of technology or capability. And so they go, well, what is it then? And they're like, well, maybe it's, and let's just say something like, it's obvious at this point, right? Like Occam's razor. Like if it's technology that's not from Earth, then where the heck else can it be? I guess you could say interdimensional.
NHI, they keep using that term, which kind of gets under my skin a little bit because it reminds me of UAP and all the other acronyms that they're kind of using to sidestep the issue.
What is HI? I haven't heard that one.
Yeah.
Non-human intelligence.
Non-human intelligence, NHI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't heard that one. How ridiculous is that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll give you another one. Biologics. We've recovered biologics.
Yeah. That could be anything.
Yeah.
That could be
like
a spider,
what if we've recovered extraterrestrial bodies? Yeah. Because they, so then it makes me wonder, like, what are they, what is really the purpose? What are they really trying, are they actually trying to provide any information, or is this all just some kind of, pony show just to like, hey, look over here.
I lean towards that.
We're going to give you no information. We're going to cause a whole lot of ruckus. We're going to say a whole lot of things. We're going to get people very excited. And by the time the whole show is over, you will have not learned anything that you already didn't know before all of this started.
Exactly. And that's my main complaint, because we know just from the hundreds upon hundreds of whistleblowers the amount of investigation that's been done, that there are incidents like the Roswell UFO crash. That's pretty well verified with several hundred witnesses. Basically, they've interviewed people from every single phase of that whole incident, from who saw it on radar to who guarded the wreckage, to who picked up the wreckage, to who flew the wreckage. I mean, it goes on and on right down the line. And that's just one. We know they have footage of so many UFO incidents. Throughout the 1950s, these jet aircraft were basically ordered to sort of shoot them down from the work of Frank Ficino. I love him as an investigator, really thorough, very objective. And each of those jets has multiple cameras on them. I mean, my point is we have excellent gun camera footage that's absolutely incontrovertible, 100% conclusive. And we haven't seen any of that. We haven't seen any footage of the Malmstrom incident or the Capitol flyover or the landing at Edwards Air Force Base or the so many incidents we know they have direct evidence of. And they're not even they're actually denying that Malmstrom, March 1967, even took place, where they shut down our nuclear-tipped intercontinental ballistic missiles. Another very well verified event. So until and unless the Pentagon or the intelligence agencies or the highest levels of the military are willing to admit to the truth of, just 5 or 10 of these major UFO incidents that are very well verified, I don't find them to be a credible source of information. I don't really want to hear what they have to say because they're lying. They're open their mouths. It's a lie. So how are we supposed to believe them if they can't tell the truth even a little bit? I think it's a dog and pony show, like you said. It's very, I can't say for sure, but it certainly feels like propaganda, and that these whistleblowers, some of them, I don't want to say all, I haven't interviewed all these folks. But I feel like it's, what would I say, sanctioned. Like you march out there, here's your script, here's what we want you to talk about, don't talk about this. I have to believe there are good, legitimate, honest whistleblowers who really want the truth out there. But some of them are really raising my eyebrows. These recent whistleblowers talking out, Jake Barber, is that his name? Jason Barber, with the egg-shaped craft and psionics, and using technology and psychic mental ability to call down UFOs and shoot them down. I don't think that is true.
No.
Because for one, you can definitely reach out to ET using what we call close encounters of the fifth kind, using consciousness and mental telepathy to reach out to them, and perhaps they'll show up, perhaps they won't. There's a lot of literature on this. I've actually done it myself with groups of people, and singly for that matter. But as far as fooling them into thinking we're ET and then hitting them with a weapon, those two things, no, you cannot.
It's
lie
laughable.
To an ET.
No, because the whole point of mental telepathy is that there's no lying.
Right. You could not.
There's no way to hide what you're thinking.
100%, Jenny. It's not even a remote possibility.
No.
And second, their technology is not 1,000 years ahead of us. It's not 100,000. It's far, far, far ahead of us. We could, before you even press a button on whatever particle beam weapon or missile or whatever you want to call it, they already know before you even press the darn button. So this is classic disinformation. And I'm guessing some of these guys actually believe what they're saying.
It's very possible.
Or are being used and manipulated to believe it, or are just flat out lying. I don't know. Because some of these people sure do look honest. Like they're really trying to do the right thing.
We did for every year we do a predictions show, and for my personal predictions, I do like a meditative connecting in with my higher self. So I asked about disclosure, and the answer was that they are doing confused awareness.
I like it.
So it's like they're trying to make us aware, but at the same time trying to keep us completely confused. And that made total sense to me.
Yeah, which speaks to the whole drone wave.
Yeah, like what do you think about that? What is going on with those?
Oh gosh, I sat on the back burner there and I just watched because I'm like, this is bizarre to me. And I started consulting with people who I think are in a much better position to know than me in terms of being connected to the military. You may know Dolly Safran.
Yeah.
We've had Dolly on the show.
Yeah. She's my favorite contactee. She's directly connected to ET. And she said, nope, those are not ET. Flat out, they're not here. Can't be them. I'm like, okay. She's also connected to the Department of Defense. Her father was very highly placed. She as well. So she knows about these sort of things, as well as people like James Goodall, who I've spoken to directly about this. He's an aviation historian, fairly well known in this field. Cheryl Costa also had a Navy Air Force career.
We've had Cheryl on a couple times,
Army, Air Force, like I got in trouble. It's one of those.
I think it was two different
Navy.
ones. So I think
Navy and Air Force, I'm pretty sure. At any rate, she's like, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
She's connected to some of these Tibetan yogis who are very telepathic and connected to the ETs. And they're like, not ET.
No.
And so I dove into, okay, it's time to educate myself about drones.
Yeah.
So I looked up what I could and I'm like, wow, these things are advanced. And what we can look up on the internet. Oh my gosh, the things as fast as they can go. And this is what we can see on the internet because we know the military is 50, 100 years at least ahead of anything we see.
Oh yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, Preston, I was in the Army and I was actually in a drone unit.
Oh, wow.
So I worked in it's called Task Force Odin, ODIN. And we flew what they call the Lokis, which is essentially the Army's version of the Air Force Predator drones. And these drones that we were seeing in this last time was like stuff that I'd never seen before. Now I'm not claiming to be any kind of expert at all on any of this. I just happened to work in a unit that did deal with drones, and like the technology is moving very, very, very fast. It seems like.
Yeah. And we know they have holographic technology because we've seen this in the public arena. Or, I don't know if you've seen like the film of a whale jumping out of a gymnasium floor.
Yeah, they brought back Tupac, right? Tupac and Ronnie James Dio, I think. Yeah.
and things coming out of billboards, giant people and robots and dragons and that look real. I mean, they look seriously real. There's this one museum that people go to where they create a flood. It's online. People have this water come pouring towards them, and every single person runs because oh my God, they all flinch. Every one of them. It looks real.
Yeah.
My point is, people are like, what about these orbs? Well, that wouldn't be too hard to create some sort of, and if you have an area where you can do this with lasers and 5G and holographic technology that could possibly be partially reverse engineered from ET, we can't rule that out.
Yeah.
This is still easily explainable as covert military ops. That's my assessment. We've gotten some pushback on this, but I don't see anything. Because when there's a wave, like an intense UFO wave, almost always you have people saying, well, I was taken on board. I met ETs. It's not always at night. It's not. There's a variety of craft usually. And we're seeing some of that, admittedly, but I'm not seeing anyone describe, a saucer with portholes or an ET.
No. No, but one thing that did surprise me about the drones was the variety. But then there was one thing specifically, and I don't even know if I talked to you about this. We might have talked about it, Jenny. But there was one specific sighting that did intrigue me that people were seeing during this time, which was like the orb that seemed to kind of pulse. And it didn't even look like it was necessarily all the way solid, but it was like an orb, like a bluish white orb, and it would kind of grow in brightness and then kind of dim, and it would kind of flash. And about a year prior to that, maybe not even a whole year, Jenny and I, going for our evening strolls, were seeing lots of we would see like what looked like a star, but it would kind of pulse and it would change colors from like red to blue to green, and then it would move. Like we would fix a position on it and it would move slightly. It was like wobbling.
It was wobbling. Yeah.
And so like we were like, what are we seeing? And it's like, well, my first reaction is that it was a satellite, but I don't think a satellite wouldn't wobble from side to side like that. And it wasn't like a radio tower, and we could never really figure it out. But when I saw that orb, I was like, man, that's kind of similar to what me and you were seeing over like the summertime.
Yeah.
To a certain
sort
extent.
of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's all kinds of films out on the internet, videos, and I have to discard the vast majority of them because some are clearly CGI.
Oh yeah. It's so hard to tell now what is real and what is not.
Unless you have people who are willing to stand behind it, multiple witnesses. And even then, there's a lot of bad actors in this field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flat up hoaxers and out to just, hey, I fooled you, or look, a cool little CGI, like AI. AI stuff coming out these days with ETs walking around and knocking on people's doors and jumping out of dumpsters, and I'm like, wow, oh my gosh,
I know. Then how are we supposed to weed out the real things from all of this? Garbage.
And I also find it really suspicious. Real quick, is we have all these congressional hearings going on, and we're like, wow, this is actually taking steps forward. This is kind of interesting. And then this wave happens, and what does the media do? They don't ignore it like they do every other single wave that we've ever had. Some do get a little bit of coverage, but this was a frenzy.
Absolutely.
And it was like, wow, what? Why? Why are you covering this so extensively? And then you have the senators coming out of the Capitol. People are interviewing them. Like, what do you think of the drones? I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know what it is. I'd really like to know. And then the Pentagon saying, well, hobbyists. No, not hobbyists. It's, we don't know what they are. They could be from China. I mean, everyone is cross-talking and contradicting.
Yeah.
It's like,
that was one thing that kind of bothered me, is when they were trying to say it was hobbyists. Because like, some of these things were the size of cars, trucks, like, no, that's not someone who's going out on the weekend to fly drones. Like, that's not what that is. Like you said it. Now, maybe it's some kind of military operation, which, interesting enough, was taking place over a lot of military airspace. I know we had some here in Virginia over Langley, which, from what I understand, there's a lot of things that are seen over Langley, but it only got reported during this last drone wave. But people who were providing that information had said that they've been seeing things over Langley Air Force Base for decades now on a consistent basis. But this news wave of the drones, it got swept up into that. So I don't know.
Well, if a hobbyist were to say fly their little hobbyist drone over a military base, that would be very bad news for them.
Exactly. It ain't going to be flying much longer,
No.
So yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Anyway,
and of course they're saying, well, we're searching for nuclear material. I'm like, well, that actually does make a little bit of sense, but I don't know. And then of course we have the new administration coming in, and we got some more kind of, it's like, well, this was, what did they say? This was authorized by the FAA. It's not what they said earlier.
Yeah.
So
a lot of confused
awareness.
Confused awareness. And another thing, Preston, I don't know, it was brought to my attention the last time when all these subcommittee hearings started in Congress, that whenever you start hearing about, whenever your whistleblowers all seem to be coming from the CIA and intelligence, to kind of be a little more scrutinizing. And that seems to be, so much of it tends to be coming from the CIA and intelligence fields that I think that is a little bit, it raises some alarms too.
Well, yeah, that's what Preston said earlier. It's like they're sanctioning it, so that means they get to censor it or have them say what they want them to
kudos,
say.
To people who are putting their reputation on the line.
Yes,
like I said, I think there are legitimate whistleblowers. I've actually interviewed a few who I do trust, but whenever someone comes directly from the intelligence sector and starts spoon feeding information out, I'm like,
yeah,
I don't know what to think of some of these folks. And, I think there are members of Congress who are legitimately wanting the truth.
I think that too, yeah.
And the problem is, how do you get to it? Because the only power Congress has is like to say oversee a budget of the Pentagon, and you can see how the obfuscations that the Pentagon goes through. Remember the $1,000 hammer scandal?
Oh yeah.
$1,000 for a washer and $1,000 for a pencil.
Yeah.
So we know money is being funneled to the black budget. Michael Schratt, another researcher I love, is really on the ball with all of this. He did a presentation called "The Price is Wrong." Really funny, but chilling at the same time.
Yeah, we can laugh about it, but actually it's really terrifying, because what are they doing with all that money?
Exactly. So I think that's, the only real tool we have to battle this is to gain knowledge and try to and push back on these folks, say enough is enough. And another is to level up our psychic ability to a point where we can, because if a UFO is going to come down, the ETs are going to communicate telepathically. This is how they do it.
Yeah.
So if you have one of these things coming down and you're not getting the message, I would be very cautious of it.
Plus, we can also bring that telepathy thing back around to what we were talking about earlier, where if our telepathy is so well advanced, then all those people can't lie to us either.
Exactly. The drone wave scares me. I think it might be a pre-exercise, a dry run for the so-called false flag ET,
like Project Blue Book.
Yeah.
One other thing I wanted to say, and then if we want to move on from this topic a little bit, we can. But one thing that bothers me about this, Preston, is like, you started getting into this field, around 1986 from your bio. I was already into it. I started listening to Art Bell around 1998 and like really getting, and I can only say that I think so many of us were waiting for these moments. It was like, man, I can't wait until Congress is talking about UFOs. Like that'll be
now
the
we're
day.
Here and it's like wah wah wah.
and the one thought I had when we played at the very beginning, Preston, we played a little bit of the news conference from the new from that new task force they made to go over all this JFK and MLK and 9/11 and all this stuff, UFOs, is Representative Luna. Someone in the press asked her, was she afraid that she wouldn't be able to access some of this information because of her clearance, because of it's be so highly, such a high clearance level. And she's like, well, I have a TS. And then as soon as she said that, I just thought to myself, a lot of these people in Congress that are going after this information, I don't know if they haven't been invested as long as a lot of us have. They haven't been through the trials and tribulations of like learning about these huge events that's been completely ignored by the media. And all I could think to myself was like, oh, sweet summer child. Like you think a TS
clearance.
You think a TS is going to get you all the information that you need to know? Like this stuff has been compartmentalized to where probably very few can get their hands on this information. And like I said, I hope all the best. I hope all the information is released. But that was a little, I was watching it with Jenny and I was like, that bothers me a little bit because they almost think that this is going to be easy. And I can guarantee, I'm not an expert on any of this, but I can guarantee you one thing, and that's that getting that information is not going to be easy.
Yeah, because it's basically not in government hands, a lot of it. These are private corporations, apparently, that you can't, just issue a Freedom of Information Act request and get, the Roswell craft.
Yeah. Or else, people have been asking for that stuff forever. It would have come out already if it was under the Freedom of Information.
We're never going to get it.
No.
I hate to be, a downer about this, but I just don't think that our governments, secret governments, cabal, intelligence agencies, Pentagon, highest levels of the military, are ever going to be voluntarily truthful and transparent with this subject.
Yeah.
We're going to be led down this road for a very long time. I expect we'll see some more blurry videos, some more questionable whistleblowers, maybe even a piece of metal. That wouldn't surprise me, which is so disingenuous when we have the whole craft. I mean, not just one. I mean, if you investigate UFO crash retrievals, it's mind-blowing how many incidents there are.
Yeah,
we had way more than I thought.
We had Michael Stroud on, and we didn't even get to I think we got to 1951.
Yeah.
It's it was unbelievable, the amount of retrievals.
I knew that there were many UFO sightings before Roswell, but my mind was absolutely blown on how many UFO retrievals existed before Roswell. It was Roswell was not the start. That was somewhere in the middle.
That is a little bit of an eye opener. Cape Girardeau, Missouri, I think 1941, and that's a prominent one that immediately comes to mind. I believe there was another during the Battle of LA. 1942, was it? It goes way back. Yeah,
and Roswell not till 47. So there was so much. I was like, man, there's a lot of good information that came out from talking to Michael. That was a really interesting. So, yeah. All right. So, what have you? We had you on. It was so great for you to come back. We've been super excited to talk to you again. What have you been up to since we talked to you last? I know that you were in the process of still writing last time. How has everything been going?
Well, we talked about symmetry, I know, with Dolly Safran. After that, I put out a couple of more books. I try to put out at least one book a year. I'm trying hard to get two, but that's tough work.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. My last two books, and I don't know if we talked about these. One is Not From Here, Volume 5.
I think that's the one you were getting ready to put out last time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is basically taking some of the articles I've written over the years and putting them in book form. But I pretty much ran out of articles with that volume, so a good portion of that book is pretty much brand new.
Cool.
And also, I put out a book that I've been wanting to do for a long time, to sort of embrace the whole contact experience, not just the UFO element of it, but all the paranormal and high strangeness that comes with it. So I put out a book called Humanoids and High Strangeness.
Awesome.
Which has 20 true cases. Some quite unusual, to say the least. Those are the last two books. I'm now working on Symmetry, the sequel.
Awesome.
Which I've pretty much just finished the interviews and starting to put that together.
Cool.
These things take a lot longer, so than you'd expect. But I'm always, anytime you put out a book, all the stories start coming back at you. It's like, I put out a book on USOs, and people are like, well, I've got this. I put out a book on schoolyard encounters. Still getting more of those.
Yeah.
Healings, of course, is a big part of my research, UFO healing cases. So I'm really very, very busy. I'm just trying to keep up with my older books.
Just collecting more stories. Yeah. Plus, you've been putting out a weekly compilation on YouTube. I've been keeping up with those. And as someone who makes YouTube content, that is also very time consuming.
Yeah, very much.
Those are always great. And those you kind of take from all the collection over the years, right? Of the research.
Well, sometimes it's my own research. Sometimes I, do more armchair type research.
Yeah.
Or I draw it from one of my books. So yeah, I like to, what would I say? Change it up a little bit. But humanoids, people love hearing about the humanoid cases.
Yes.
And I find them so fascinating. That's the heart of I hate the word phenomenon, the heart of the UFO experience.
Yeah.
I think is direct contact. That's where I focused most of my research. People have been taken on board. People who've seen humanoids face to face.
And then listening to your shows on YouTube, we think of the ones we know, like the Greys, or if people are really into it, maybe they think of like the Nordic looking ones or whatever. But when you listen to your shows on YouTube, holy moly, there is like so many different kinds of humanoid ETs that people see. So I had this question for you. Just ballpark figure, out of all the research that you've done, all of the studies, all the cases that you've studied, what do you think might be the number for the different types that people have encountered so far?
Yeah, I love this question because I've been circling around this for a while. People are like, well, there's 50 different species. I kind of bought into that idea. Like, there's numerous different species. But I kept hearing from contactees where the ETs would tell them, no. We all share a common ancestry.
Yeah.
We all have a common heritage. We are you are us. We are one. Talking to Dolly Saffron really clarified this for me. Started taking a deeper look at this. There is an endless type, variations, what I would call ancestries. The way our genetics dial out. But from what I can tell, we're dealing with basically humanoids. We're a version of humanoids, as are the Greys, as are the praying mantis, as are the basically human-looking ones, as are the tall whites, or these little blue kind of troll-like beings, or short little dwarves. I've got several cases involving humanoids who are 8, 9, maybe 10 feet tall. People describe 10 feet. I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah.
That's pretty tall. But one guy, he's a Navy medic. He said that ETs he encountered were mantids, and they were 15 feet tall.
I have heard they get pretty big, those mantids.
And he's like, listen, I'm 6 feet tall. I stood in front of him. I did face-to-face interviews with them, phone interviews, multiple interviews, talked to him over and over and over again. A Navy medic, a good witness.
Yeah.
And he's like, listen, they were more than twice my height.
Wow.
He's over 6 feet tall.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm going to say it's kind of an endless variety. But here's kind of my answer to that. If you were to take every culture on this planet, whether it's the Watusi or the Pygmies or people, from Asia or Russia, I love looking at languages and how similar, French is to Italian, is to Spanish, is to all, the Romance languages, and how close, some of the Russians look to some of the Eskimos, look to some of the Native Americans, and how their cultures come together. And if you look them and you put them all in a line, you see this enormous variation of skin color, an enormous variation of eye shape, nose shape, lips, all of it, height, body type. And I bet if you were to put all of them there, you would have a variation of, hundreds. And you could stick some Greys in there. Probably not going to be immediately recognizable. It's not from Earth.
Yeah.
That's how much variation we have. So yeah, I'm come to the conclusion that basically we all are very much related to each other. That probably all have genetics as we would think of it. Whether that's all precisely the same, I don't know. But studying genetics turned out to be really interesting too, because you always go down these little pathways and tangents.
Which would mean there was like one origin point for like some original extraterrestrial beings.
Yeah, well, we know humanity is massively inbred. Essentially, it came from, as near as we can tell, a pretty small group of people, which is really interesting. And the fact that there are ETs out there that do look human. Like, well, these are just Greys and they're disguising themselves. I don't think so. Not that there's not screen memories and stuff like this going on, but so many reports of human-looking ETs. That really raises serious questions about who did we even originate on this planet?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that makes me wonder about another question and some stuff that Jenny has had some experience with, which is, what kind of things have you investigated that are non-humanoid?
Yeah, none. And I've surveyed the literature, and every now and then, there was a case involving Cyclops beings, and I just took a look at it, and I'm like, oh, I can't. It didn't have enough credibility to me to say this is a real, honest to God case that I think we should take seriously. Mm-hmm. There was another one involving blob-like beings. I'm like, okay. I'll put that on the back burner, but it's unique. Yeah. I haven't seen another one like that. But there's a few like that. But as a researcher, you kind of take all the cases and you sort of put them in a file and you compare them. Those non-human cases are what we would call statistically insignificant. There aren't enough cases to rise above a level of 5%. Where you can really say this is, a part of the UFO experience.
Yeah.
I don't know. I suspect there are some beings out there that might look quite a bit different from us.
There seems to be a lot of robot type of beings, though, that people have seen.
Yes, that does come up. And I find that fascinating because sometimes they're very much humanoid in form still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Which is like, really? We have robots here on this planet. If you looked at some of those labs where they're putting, you can see them. They're
getting there.
They're
getting there.
Person.
It's coming quicker and quicker. I feel like, like it's going to happen. Where it's. I think we've gotten to the point where we're going to see that in our lifetime, like where that becomes something you see every day. And
I do think some of the smaller grays. Because Whitley Strieber talked about this, Dolly Saffron, a number of people are AI, biological androids, alive, kind of, but not ensouled, if you know what I mean.
That's what I was going to ask, because that's what I was thinking that it meant, that they don't have like the source energy as part of their soul.
Right.
Yeah,
they're not born, they don't die, they're shut off.
So I have so I want to kind of explore that a little bit, just because I have an idea. I guess I'm going to speak out loud, just to get y'all's opinion on the thoughts I had here. So we're talking about so many other ET that are coming to our planet tend to have a humanoid form of some kind, very similar to us, related to us to a certain extent. Now, we know that we have other intelligent life on our planet, namely like dolphins, extremely intelligent. But yet I don't think that we would send probes to other planets looking for intelligent sea mammals, right? Like we're going to be looking for other humanoid civilizations. City builders, spacefarers. Like that's probably who we're going to go once we, if we get to the point where we can achieve some kind of space travel. That's probably what we're going to look for. So is it possible maybe that we're like in this situation where we're looking for other humanoid life and non-humanoid life is looking for other non-humanoid life because it doesn't recognize us as being what they are? Like maybe that could be a reason why we don't see other non-humanoid life.
I mean, it's an interesting speculation. I think we can't. It's a big universe out there. It's as far as we can tell, infinite.
Yeah, massive.
So I have to remain open to all possibilities. And people are like, "Oh, I'd love to meet an ET." And one of my responses is, "Yeah, you should actually go meet a dolphin. I've done that. It's amazing. They're very intelligent."
Yeah.
And in fact, zoologists and scientists are now taking a much closer look at life on our planet.
Yep.
They found out that birds, the crow, COVID species, are incredibly intelligent. The crows are teaching their children things that, and like if there's a place they can go to for food, if that parent dies and the child has never been there, they will know where it is. Their mom taught them this. They've proven this. Of course, Coco the gorilla is another good example.
Oh yeah, love Coco.
Controversial, but
yeah,
there's dogs. They're the smartest dog. Look that up. It's crazy.
And they're figuring out that trees and mushrooms and things talk to each other too. So there's it's like the extent of what we know of consciousness, I think, is very limited.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if there are intelligent dolphins on other planets.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The dolphins here are clearly not city builders. How would they?
Yeah.
And we look at that, well, our ability to build shows that we're superior.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not so
Well,
sure.
that's what I'm saying. Like if we found an extraterrestrial planet, right, and there was no signs of any humanoid life there, but there was a vibrant like sea world, and there were fish and there were dolphins, and like would we be like, oh, we found intelligent life? I don't know that we would. We'd be like, hey, we found some animals,
Which
but we
has
haven't.
been my argument
Yeah.
about things.
Yeah. Another one I want to bring up because you were talking about just recently is elephants. Elephants do some really crazy things with the especially when it comes to like mourning.
Their emotional intelligence is very advanced. Their memory, it's astonishing. I think it's important that we take a look at animals because we do have variation of life on this planet. It's really interesting too, because speaking towards genetics, the genetics of all life on Earth is very, very similar.
Yeah, like isn't like the DNA of a banana like not that far off from us,
Yeah,
just
so
a couple
weird
of chromosomes away from being a banana.
Yeah, the bonobo, the primate, virtually identical DNA. I don't know that we can interbreed, but if we're interbreeding with grays, they've told people they are human. And said we look like you. So once you get 1 or 2 reports, you're like, huh. But once that starts to build up to 10, 20, 30, 40, you're like, okay, this has moved out of that realm of, again, statistically insignificant to something to take seriously. It's really, really interesting. But I do think that the fact that almost without exception, what we're seeing are humanoids coming into these craft. We can pretty much say that the universal template for sentient life that's traveling interstellar distances is currently, to our assessment, humanoid.
For sure.
I've heard a lot of speculation too that the grays that we come into contact with could possibly not be extraterrestrial, but be us from the future or from another dimension. Have you ever done any research where that came up as a possibility?
I sure have. I'm like, that would be an interesting, dive to go into and research this and see how many cases. I came up with very few cases, and some were just not credible. There is an element of time travel in UFO cases that is not, I don't think, what we would think of as classic time travel, where you go to the past and change the past or something, and the whole grandfather complex, what do they call it? The enigma. You can't go back and kill your grandfather. So from what I've been able to tell, that yes, they can travel into the past, but basically do not interact with it. It's something they're looking at as much like a reflection or a recording. But they can certainly pull people out of the time stream, and people will have, an 2 hours long experience, 2 or 3 days, longer even, and come back. And maybe an hour has passed, maybe a few minutes. So they're able to do things. I've got case after case after case of someone who's suddenly sees the grays and nothing around them is moving. I'm like, what do they do? Stop the entire universe? That makes no sense. So there's an element of pulling people out of time or doing things with time that we don't fully understand. I don't see any really good arguments or evidence or first-hand cases to support that they're time travelers from the future or us from the future. And then people are like, well, they're interdimensional. You've got to admit that they're interdimensional because Jacques Vallée, I'd really like to get into Jacques Vallée's theory.
Which is what?
That it's not ET at all. That it is an intelligence that wears different masks.
Oh.
Conforms itself to each culture's beliefs. And he's got, the 5 main reasons why it's not extraterrestrial. I'm like, okay, what are these reasons? One is there are too many cases of them landing. I'm like, well, that's kind of an odd, it's like, that makes zero sense. That's pure speculation. That's your opinion. how does that prove that they're not ET? Well, the argument is that they don't need to do all these onboard experiences and physical exams. Why would they be continuing to do that? And how could they travel between stars if the stars are so far away? Why is there so much high strangeness?
Mm-hmm.
So these arguments are purely speculative and not based on fact. So, and they fail to account for quite a good amount of the evidence, such as the crash retrievals, or the internet evidence, or the missing fetus syndrome. And so many other elements where people, go back on board and they will see their child, and then see the child as an adult. I've got several cases of that. So this is someone who's grown up with the ETs, and you're telling me that this is an anthropocentric theory that basically says, well, they're only manifesting for us. And any anthropocentric theory basically falls by the wayside as we gain knowledge. We're not the center of the universe.
I mean, I guess I can kind of see how that theory might come about, especially if sometimes the ET are doing the screen memories, like to show us a mental image of something that's not real. I guess I could see where maybe that theory could come about.
Well, some people go on board and there's a couch and a carpet and it looks like and I dove into that because ETs will do this. They will dress up their craft in a way. We have no idea how advanced these craft are. If you continue to really talk to these contactees, a chair will come up out of the floor. Anything you need. These craft themselves are living embodied beings. They are not just a metallic shell with little wiring going through it. It is far, far. The technology, as a rule, is psychically connected, intertwined. It's part of their technology.
I think that's a hard thing for people to wrap their mind around, Preston. Like, I teach history, and one of the things I have to explain to people sometimes, like, when I'm teaching is like, I had an aunt who lived to be 100 years old, and she was born at, towards the beginning of the 20th century. She saw horse and buggies going down the road when she was born, when she was a little girl. By the time she passed away, she saw electric vehicles and cell phones and the internet and telephones and radio and television. And, it's just like the amount of technology we've seen increase just in the last 100 years is, to the human mind, I think would be almost like unbelievable. So now imagine what kind of technology we could have in 1 million years.
Yeah.
That's the kind of technology that extraterrestrials could have.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, totally explains, how, because Jack Flay's like, well, they're breaking the laws of physics. I'm like, no, they're not. We don't understand the laws of physics.
We don't.
Exactly.
We don't understand.
We have no clue.
We don't understand, the high strangeness aspects. That's his best argument. And there are some cases I'm like, wow, those are strange. And he dove really deep into the fairy lore, leprechauns and elves and fairies and gnomes and little people. I ended up interviewing a guy from my book, Humanoids and High Strangeness, who saw an elf. And he described it as, like we hear, wearing a little brown coat, leather boots, green trousers, turned up nose, big round eyes. He was bald. This little elf thing could move through the wall. He had conversations with it. Once two showed up. This was when he was a little kid. And his mom's like, it's an imaginary friend. And he came from a very well-adjusted family, had lots of friends. He wasn't a lonely kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I did a whole video on him. And boy, the response was amazing because people are like, I'm so glad you did that. I saw this and I saw that. And I had an elf encounter. And
wow.
Some of these people had other people with them. One case that really kind of intrigued me was one kid woke up in bed and there was this little elf-like being holding up his Matchbox car, looking at it, and it turns and sees that the kid is awake, goes right through the wall, and the Matchbox car hits the wall.
Oh, wow.
Spins. Just kind of had the ring of truth to it.
Yeah.
But my point is, and this is what I found when I started, okay, let's dive into the elves. elves. Oh my gosh, this sounds like, Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. Nope. It's very well authenticated. The fairy sightings, elf sightings, little people are present in pretty much every culture.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was looking into the Alaskan or the Eskimos. They have this whole culture of, I forget what they call them, but this oral history of these little beings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a case in, I think, Iceland, where there's this elf-like being smoking a pipe.
Yeah.
Like, this raises all kinds of questions in my mind. I'm like, who's making that pipe? Who's making your clothes?
We did.
I think these are interdimensional beings. These are what I would term crypto-terrestrials. I don't think they're ETs. I don't think it's a phenomena wearing different masks, tracking each culture and trying to influence our beliefs, which is basically what Jacques Vallée is, postulating.
Okay.
I think we're dealing with a wide variety of things that are all being conflated into one, because there's a whole school of thought that it's all demonic. That ghost of your Aunt Joan, demon. That Bigfoot, demon. Any ghost is a demon. Any, which is actually fairly popular among people who are of a religious persuasion. So I looked into that. I mean, I do think demons are real. No doubt in my mind. I've investigated some really horrific hauntings involving that whole thing. It manifests in a fairly set pattern, as does the onboard experience. Fairly set pattern, as does a near-death experience. A Bigfoot encounter. All of these have a fairly there's always unique elements, but they follow, angelic encounters are absolutely real. So I think it's a mistake to put them all together and say it's one thing. It's all source. Yeah, I mean, it all comes from source, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
So when people say, oh, they're interdimensional, I'm like, well, who is it? Aren't you? You are interdimensional.
Speaking of clothes, that's one thing. Whenever I encounter angels, they're always wearing some crazy getup that's all embroidered. I'm like, who's embroidering like angel clothes? I think it's just thought forms, but
well, I think you put it there. Yeah.
Speaking of the elf clothes, I always see the angels wearing like this crazy embroidered thing, and I'm like, I just imagine some little cute old lady angel sitting up there having embroidered
making all the angel clothes.
Here's kind of my theory with that, because I've wondered about it. I've had a lot of out-of-body experiences. I'm the kind of researcher. It's like, it's fun talking to people who've seen UFOs, reading about it. I want to see one, and I did.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, we're ghost hunting now. Oh gosh, I want to see a ghost. It's not enough for me to talk to somebody. I want, and I did. And same with Bigfoot. I eventually had a Bigfoot encounter.
Oh, yay!
And as far as out-of-body experiences, I started hearing these accounts. I'm like, wow, this is something anybody can do. This is easy access to the paranormal, to the other side.
Yeah.
And you can go over to the other side and you can create any kind of costume you want. It's so much fun. It's crazy because you see people.
They don't need little old ladies making embroidered angel clothes. They just imagine it. Yep.
Well, I actually want to hear a little bit about the Bigfoot encounter, possibly. But real quick, before we get there, we've gone past the hour mark, so I want to reset a little bit because we've had a lot of people come in since the beginning of the start of the program. So welcome in if you've come in since the beginning. Tonight, our guest is Preston Dennett, and we are talking about, elves and angels and ET and UFOs and congressional hearings and all kinds of stuff. And hopefully we'll be getting into even more. I've seen a couple questions that we can get across real quick, and I do want to let everyone know, as always, feel free to throw your question into chat, and we will start. We will get those questions to Preston as the show progresses here. We're getting into just about the last 35 minutes or so before we get to the end. So if you have a question for Preston, make sure that you get it in there, and we will relay that to him. So, Preston, Bigfoot sighting. We actually had a guest on talking about for Bigfoot in one of our most recent episodes. So I'm really curious to hear, what was your Bigfoot experience?
Yeah, Bigfoot was something I shied away from for as long as I could because I just knew it was going to be real. I was, I would hear about it and I'm like, gosh, there's a lot of witnesses who are seeing this stuff, but I didn't want to go there because it was a lot to deal with UFOs and ghosts alone and out-of-body experiences and all this other stuff. I don't blame skeptics, honestly. I kind of understand.
Right, Preston? It's like, yeah, it sounds wacko, but at the same time, I mean, don't you? Because this is like one of the things when we started doing this podcast is like, well, should the podcast just be about UFOs, or should it be just about mediums, or should it be? I see a lot of ones that are just about Bigfoot, and it's just about, But isn't it weird how all these things just kind of seem to intermingle and kind of be interwoven with each other?
Yeah, they absolutely are. They're not the same thing, but
yeah.
An investigator to focus solely on the nuts and bolts. Well, I get it. I mean, if that's your area of expertise and that's what you want to focus on, that's fine. But don't deny the fact that people are having a psychic awakening as a result of their UFO encounter, or that some Bigfoot encounters and UFO encounters coincide, or that all kinds of things can happen. That's what we would call paranormal, whether it's levitation or telepathy or clairvoyance, or precognition. Definitely, all of this happens during UFO encounters or before or after. Absolutely connected. And that's what happened. That's what dragged me into the Bigfoot thing. Because I'm like, I've always endeavored to be absolutely objective and thorough in my investigations. So if someone says, this paranormal event happened, I'm like, okay, let's talk about it. And I got this interview from a gentleman, a radiologist, Robert Murphy, I'll never forget it, who had a UFO land in his backyard in Canyon Country, which is in Southern California, but next to the LA National Forest, which, sounds like, well, it's LA. It's a huge forest. There's millions of acres of forest there and a huge Bigfoot history, which I didn't know about because, I was not really wanting to go there. But he said he had a Bigfoot encounter the next day. He's like, Preston, I'm telling you, these are connected. I don't know if that UFO dropped the Bigfoot off or if it came to see the Bigfoot or what's going on here, but they're connected. And I'm like, well, tell me about your Bigfoot encounter. And he heard it roar. He says, it was reading my mind. I'm telling you, we had a telepathic connection. I'm like, what? I did not know about that. But that turned up in a lot of these Bigfoot cases. So he had a poltergeist outbreak afterwards. I'm like, okay. So this was my first bleed through kind of case. And I started getting others. And I went into the literature and I found a bunch, 50 or 100 cases where Bigfoot and UFO are seen at the same time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, there's something to this. And started researching Bigfoot because, I wrote Supernatural California. I got a book contract from Schiffer Books to write this book on all the different aspects of California. And of course, Bigfoot. California is one of the leading producers. So I became a Bigfoot researcher and interviewed people and started hearing all these stories and got to interview this lady who called me up. She's like, I'm having Bigfoot come to my house. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you can hear it screaming at night in the wash. This is on the other side of the LA National Forest in Acton, Lancaster, that area. And she says, it screams like it's a woman being murdered. I'm like, oh gosh, I've heard this. They do lots of vocalizations, which are off the charts. And she's like, well, it looked in the window. My son saw it. My roommate saw it. Can you please come up here? I'm like, okay. So I drove up, an hour and a half to her house and looked at the tree that it broke, a trunk this big, took a little picture of it, looked at the footprints, and they weren't, conclusive by any means. Talked to her roommate and her son. It was like, oh yeah, I looked in the window. At one point, she heard this clunk on the roof. Went up the next day, and there was a boulder on the roof.
What?
How does that get up there? She's like, I'm telling
throwing rocks.
They
Chill out, Bigfoot.
Yeah, they're all about rock throwing.
Yeah.
So at any rate, she's like, it's in telepathic contact with me. I know where it lives. I think it likes me. I think it wants to kidnap me. They don't kidnap people, do they? I'm like, no, there's no cases of that. I was wrong. I was dead wrong with that.
What?
There are 30 or 40 cases of that
Wow.
are fairly well verified, but a long oral history among the Native Americans of them snatching babies and women and so forth. That's a tangent. But at any
Wow.
rate, I was, later I had to tell you, maybe you're right. Don't go out at night. Because she was right there on the edge of a fairly large wilderness area.
Yeah.
So, it's not that far. It's right off the 5 freeway, the 14 freeway, 15 minutes down this road in a very rural area. She's like, I know where it lives. Let's go. I'm like, okay. Went up there a second time. And this time we brought equipment. We're going to photograph it. We're going to have, she had some really expensive equipment. She was really gung-ho with this. And we drove out there in my car along this road to this valley. It's actually a ravine, very steep walls into the LA National Forest, about 3 miles from our house, but into complete wilderness. And you go down this dirt road and there's no telephone wires. The only sign of civilization is this road. So you look around you, you see nothing. And the walls are, the mountain walls are rising up around you. And we went there around dusk because this is when it usually comes at night. So we went there basically when night fell. And she's like, this is probably far enough. I think it's coming from this valley, wherever it's coming from this direction. And so I stopped the car. I got out, she got out, and she's going to the back seat to pull out the sound equipment and the cameras and whatever we can to record it. And I'm looking up at the sky, and you can start to see one or two, probably planets rather than stars, because it was just dusk. And I walk to the front of the car, and I'm surveying the situation, the environment. I'm like, okay, here's this, here's the exit if I need to make a quick exit and so forth. When I heard what I thought for a second was a plane roaring overhead, but it was not a plane. There were no planes in the sky, and it kept going. I'm like, what? This is a roaring noise. And I'm instantly thinking of, lions and tigers and bears. And I knew it wasn't a bear. And I knew it wasn't a lion. I've had a lion roar right next to me in the zoo. I knew it wasn't a cougar. We had one next door where I grew up, roaring constantly. This thing was vibrating in my chest. And it went on for 15 to 20 seconds.
Goodness gracious.
Isn't that long, but it's long. When something's roaring, that's a long roar.
Yeah.
Multitonal. You could hear kind of high squeaks, but really, I bet if you had a sound device, it's making noises we can't hear.
Yeah.
Because that's what it felt like. And I turn and I look at the lady I'm with. She doesn't want her name used. And her eyes go so wide. And I'm like trying to where is that coming from? Because it stopped before I could kind of triangulate it. Because I'm turning my head and I'm like, oh my gosh, it roared again. And this time I could tell because I'm kind of running towards it. And she's like, what are you doing? She's in the car by now. And she's peering out the window. Get back here. We're leaving. What are you doing? Are you crazy? And I stopped and turned and I looked at her. I'm like, I want to see it. She says it roared 3 times. I had trained myself as an observer. So whenever anything strange happens, I go into this weird mode. Objective, click, train, mark events. It roared twice. Maybe it did roar 3 times. It was quite a disconcerting event because you're like, wow, what is that? And it was close. I'm guessing a couple of 100 yards, less than 1,000 feet. I could hear where it was coming from. It was right on that ravine, which was not quite 45-degree angle, but it's almost. People say, oh, it's 45-degree angle. I'm not exaggerating. Those canyon walls were very steep and thick with brush. You couldn't hike there unless you were going inch by inch and fully equipped. So she's hysterical. She's like, we're leaving. I'm like, she was so afraid that I had to say, okay, fine. Because I wanted to stay.
But that's why you guys went out there. She brought all this stuff to take a picture.
Exactly. That was the first one.
Scared.
And later I went hiking on Mount Baldy with my brother and his friend. And this was a completely separate event. I didn't see it that time or this time either, but I heard something because there's this, they want to go to the top of the mountain. They're crazy the way these guys hike. My brother and his friend will do 100-mile bike rides. That's when I stopped doing it. I'm like, I'm not biking 100 miles anymore with you guys. Like, well, let's go hike up Mount Baldy. I'm like, okay. I regretted it a few times. I nearly died. These trails are so thin.
Wow.
I got scared to death up there. I was so mad. But we were hiking up and we're going to go to the top of the mountain. And the trail started getting really bad. And no one else would go past this one point. I know why. Because it's just, why? It's really hard and very scary. But we did. And I'm like, okay, well, now we're alone and that's cool. And it got so difficult. It's like 8,000, 9,000 feet. And I started to get winded. I'm like, guys, I can't do anymore. There's the peak. It's just a mile. I'm like, I know, but I am dead. I'm not going to go. You go ahead. I'll wait here. Mm. They're like, okay, you don't mind? I'm like, no, I'll be right here. Happy as a clam.
Yeah.
Don't forget about me. So I'm waiting there and they go around the corner and my brother, for some reason, starts banging on a tree.
Does he know about Bigfoot?
No,
would not
any of this stuff.
That's what they do, man. They throw rocks and they bang on trees.
I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, what are you doing, Steven? That's called tree knocking. This is how Bigfoot communicates. Yeah. And sure enough, as soon as he stopped, way down on the other side where there's nobody, this is sheer wilderness, a cliff straight down wilderness, I hear a knocking in response. Wow. I'm like, look at that. I didn't tell them, but I did go to the ranger station. I'm like, you guys have Bigfoot reports around here? Like, yes, we do.
Oh, wow.
And I looked it up in the literature, and there was 4 that I found on that trail, that mountain, Mount Baldy. So yeah, I've had 2 peripheral kind of Bigfoot encounters.
Are you familiar with Ron Moorhead?
The name sounds vaguely no.
He's a Bigfoot. So originally he in the 1970s he was able to, him and some buddies were in Washington's in the Sierra Nevadas. And they recorded a bunch of Bigfoot sounds, like Bigfoot yelling and screaming and talking. The same issue, wood knocking and throwing rocks at them. But like, no, they don't think like trying to hurt them, but just like kind of tossing rocks at their cab tents and stuff. So lots of what sounds like verbal recordings of Bigfoot communicating. We recently had another guest on that was also able to record some sounds that were very similar to what they call the what do they call them? The Sierra sounds. Yeah, in Kentucky. So what you're describing actually sounds very similar to a lot of the things that have been documented by pretty prolific Bigfoot researchers. So that's interesting that having the same experiences. But I wanted to mention Rod Moorhead because his latest book is called Quantum Bigfoot, and it's kind of talking about Bigfoot as connections to ET or even possibly like interdimensional creature, which is things that we've kind of been talking about tonight. Yeah,
I don't think Bigfoot is an ET. That was kind of the popular theory that a lot of people are throwing around. I always wondered about it because the reports of Bigfoot go so far back.
Yeah.
They've been on this planet forever. I think they're intelligent. I think they're highly psychically developed. I think there's a wide variation of them. Some might be more primates that are perhaps not as psychically developed or intelligent. I think most probably are.
Yeah.
Because I've interviewed people, they disappear. They'll be right in front of you and they're gone.
Yeah.
Or this is why I think it's really, really hard to sneak up on one and get some good pictures. If they want you to, they might give you some pictures. Probably not going to find a body though, because we certainly bury our dead and take care of them. I imagine they do too.
Yeah.
And I think that they're to some extent far more psychically developed than we are.
Mm-hmm.
They can, turn invisible, which people can do too. There are yogis who can levitate and teleport and heal and do all kinds of read your minds. And this is very well documented. So I think that what we're dealing with is this always makes me cringe a little bit when I think, oh God, if some skeptic is hearing me talk, they're thinking I'm crazy. But I think some of these Bigfoot are contactees, honestly, is what I think is going on here. And this is why there are cases of people seeing Bigfoot come out of a UFO.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. There's a connection between Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings.
Oh yeah.
And I think I kind of agree with you. Like there's some connection there. I don't necessarily think that Bigfoot is ET though, but it's curious what that connection is.
Yeah, I think they're contactees.
Yeah.
Just like a person would be.
Here's a
humanoid,
fun question.
Right? Yeah.
Do the ETs have to wipe the Bigfoot memories like they do for us?
No, I think that's a two-way street, honestly. I think this is us and our inability to, fully remember. I think it's largely on us because I'm running into a number of cases where the ET's like, oh, you actually remember, or they'll celebrate when a person remembers. Or sometimes if a person is in complete terror, they will facilitate that.
Yeah.
Or a person will have an encounter. There's cases of this, of someone seeing a UFO. I had this happen to me. I had a missing time encounter. I forgot the whole darn thing. Did not remember the sighting at all.
Wow.
There's something weird going on when something completely out of our worldview happens.
Mm-hmm.
Our brain compartmentalizes real quickly. We're experts at denial.
Yeah.
Just
starting to learn that.
Kind of turning it into a dream memory real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's us. That's on us. Though they, I think, will facilitate it. Because there's case after case where someone will say, I'm going to remember this. And I'm like, well, no, you're going to remember it in a day or two. Or you're going to remember when the time is right. And a cue will happen, a trigger. And the memory comes flooding back in. So I think to some extent, they're like just not wanting to disrupt a person's life.
Mm-hmm.
And will perhaps facilitate them because the memories aren't wiped. They're there. They can be recalled under hypnosis and accurately as well. This is very controversial hypnosis.
Yeah.
Done correctly, it's been proven to be effective. Absolutely. It's been proven to be false memories too. But if you want to create false memories, you can. Yeah, no doubt. But I think I stand by it because the hypnotically recalled accounts match up precisely with those that are consciously recalled.
Yeah.
People are remembering the same sequence of events, even if you have no knowledge of what happens when you're taken on board. But yeah. I suspect the Bigfoot remember. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never talked to a Bigfoot, but
yeah, a blocker, not a remover for the memories. Just keeping it hidden temporarily. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I have so many questions here. So, and we're already like down to 15 minutes, and I've marked
there's
off
so much I want to talk to Preston about. Like we're gonna do the UFO stuff, but I got all this other stuff I want to talk to about.
I've only marked off 3 questions on my whole page of questions here. Okay, so I think this happened last time around this time. We got into the astral travel, out of body experiences, and just for like a second, you mentioned that you have experienced past life things through your out of body experiences, and we didn't get to talk about it at all. So can we talk about that some before we run out of time today?
Yeah. I find the subject of past lives super fascinating, and
me too.
We all have them. There are certain indications that you can look to in your own life that will show you what your past lives are. If you have any kind of odd phobias, any remarkable talents that you're a little bit of a prodigy in, or likes and dislikes, music, culture, food, dress, all of this points towards your past lives. Deja vu of certain areas. Are you drawn to a certain place?
Emotional reactions to things, and you don't understand where it came from.
Right.
Yeah.
I've always had this thing with shipwrecks. From a little boy, I was absolutely obsessed with shipwrecks, and I needed to know everything. You can see my bookshelf behind me. I've got probably 100 books on shipwrecks. And started to have out-of-body experiences. And if you have more than 5 or 10 out-of-body experiences, I can almost guarantee they're going to take you to a past life. And I can almost guarantee it's going to be the death scene, because that's the trauma you hold over from life to life. Or it's going to be a really emotional event in that life. So like one was Holocaust era, so not that long ago.
Yeah.
Where I was a 45-year-old man who got put on a bus, and we put at gunpoint, and we were basically forced to run right up to a pit, and they shot me in the back of the head.
Wow.
Didn't have a chance to do anything.
Wow.
But certainly that I got all obsessed after seeing Schindler's List. I just started to really click. I remember the first time I had a past life memory was as a little boy. We're driving in our camper across the United States, and I saw a used car lot. I saw these little triangular flags above the car lot. You know how they screen over?
I know where this is going.
I got this weird feeling. I'm like, why does that look so familiar to me? And I started to feel this real kind of sacred feeling. And I never could. Then one day it just hit me. That was that lifetime as a Tibetan monk.
Yep.
And
Frosty's had one of those too.
So cool.
Yeah.
I remember sitting next to the guy who was the teacher and just laughing my butt off because he was so funny. And all the other students glaring at me like, shut up. We're trying to learn here. Why are you joking off? And I couldn't help it, because he had such a good sense of humor. And I'd look at him and he'd just kind of smile. He liked me. I knew that he thought, my reaction was suitable. So
yeah.
Yeah. Out of body, I called for take me to a past life. And all of a sudden this like television screen sweeps over me. And I'm a woman wearing a dress, walking home at night, feeling really vulnerable because, I have no experience being a woman. And there I suddenly am. And I'm like, wow, This is crazy because this dress is like not something I would ever wear because I feel like I could be taken advantage of very easily. And yeah, that's what happened. This guy came up and he was gone. I knew what was going to happen. I had precognition of it, of him. No, it's horrible words. I don't even really want to say it, but assaulting and murdering me. And I'm like, nope. I already remembered it. I don't want to do this. And so I used my trick. I open and close my fists. I wiggle my toes and I open and close my eyes. And that brings me right back to my body. Another time was slavery times. This was so vivid. And I escaped. I was probably 17 years old, very tall, thin, young black man, no education, dirt floors. We lived in a hut that scrambled for food. It was miserable. And I ran away and quickly got caught and locked up in this room of this southern mansion. And I'm just amazed because I'm looking at the woodwork, which is mahogany on the staircase, and the chairs with their little golden buttons and the red leather, and the floors were polished. I'm like, wow, I've never seen anything like this. And it was a tiny little room. So I checked the doorknob and it opened. I'm like, oh, they didn't lock it. And so I opened it and looked and there was nobody. I'm like, it's clear. And I could see the front door to the left. So I crept up into what would be the living room, the salon, I guess. And I looked to my left and there was a little old lady in her rocking chair. And she looked at me and my heart sank. So I'm like, well, busted. This is not going to be good. And she looked at me, tilted her head, smiled very subtly, and pointed to the door. And I'm like, what? And she pointed to the door. And my heart just poured out to her with love. And I grabbed that door and I ran and I got to meet my big black mama. She was a big fat woman. I turned out I was the oldest of like 4 or 5 kids. I remembered quite a bit of it. But, another time I was Indian, a Native American boy, treated like a dog. I was going to this bar. It was a one-street town. I have no idea. 1850. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was the Wild West era.
Times can be tough. Yeah.
Yeah. And they treated me like a dog. I felt like a dog when I was around them. But then I met my Indian teacher, my Native American medicine man, I guess you might call him, shaman. And he took us on this walkabout vision quest with 2 other boys. I will never forget that man. I love him to this day. We had to do 3 tasks. One was carrying, I forget what they were. One was tracking him. There was another one, but the third one was climbing a cliff with a rucksack, a backpack of rocks. And I waited till the other guys did it, and I finally did it. I'll never forget this cliff. I don't like cliffs to this day.
But we're circling it back around to your brother making you go up the yeah.
But I did it, and I was so proud. That was what that was one where they didn't take me to the death scene, or because I think we all have guides, or you ask for a past life, and it will take you there. But yeah, I mean, I could go on. There's we all have numerous past lives. Once I went to the Akashic records, and they showed me all my past lives. There must have been 50 or 100 of them.
Yeah,
it was so cool.
Have you noticed, recognized, or run across people in those past life experiences who are people in your life now?
100% happened with my friend Roger. I knew he and I were priests together. My sister-in-law, Christy, we were definitely like pirates. we were on a ship. Dolly Saffron, absolutely. I remember being a couple of them, vague memories of being in Roman times.
Cool.
I remember a little bit of it. She's like, "Do you remember this?" And I started filling in what she was about to say. But I did have one where we were peasants in Europe, and it was just this one room house, and we worked all day, all through the night, woke up, worked just to survive. It was rough. But yeah, all the people we surround ourselves with, most of them, we continue to come back, and they're your brother this time, or your son the next time, or your grandma the next time. We kind of change roles.
Yeah,
it's interesting because we've gone through quite a bit of them. Like because Jenny does regressions, so we've done some of that. Me and Jenny went through the plague together. We were married during the plague, so I saw her die in my past life. I saw her die from the plague in England.
Fun times, yeah.
How many times have I died of starvation? How many times have I been tortured in the Spanish Inquisition?
Jenny mentioned earlier, I had one where I was a monk too, somewhere in Southeast Asia, and I was sitting up very high on this temple, like on a wall, like meditating. And there was quite a few of us that were on this wall. We had like orange or reddish robes on, and like I was sitting there meditating, and I was kind of like looking around a little bit. There was like a jungle, like kind of this mountainous jungle below me, and one of the monks just pushed me off. That's how I died. Like just. Like
so weird. I'll just be driving along and I'll see a tree or something, or a hill, or a certain slant of light, and the memory will flood over you. I'm like, oh my gosh. I talked to a psychic once, and her first words were like, oh my gosh, you remember like a lot of your past lives. Yeah. But anyone can. I mean, this is something we can all do. All of this stuff: telepathy, astral travel, clairvoyance, mediumship, healing, all of it. It's our natural human abilities.
It's really interesting because we've done a couple paracons recently, and Jenny does medium readings there, and she started having a couple people ask for, do you do like past lives? Because she had it like written down like on one of the things, and so she was like, yeah. So she went ahead and put it out there, like if you want to, and so now everywhere we're going, like everyone just wants past life readings.
Mediumship readings. So fascinating.
Yeah, they're fun. It is kind of fun.
Boy, if anyone could just wake up to the fact that we're eternal beings, that we don't really die, it would change your life. It would change life on Earth if we could all just wake up to, like you said, Jenny, if we were all telepathic. What a wonderful world this would be.
A lot of people would have to control their thoughts, but yes.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't want people to know my thoughts. All right. All right, Judy, let's go through here.
Before we
see if we can find some questions.
There was a question earlier from what is the person's name? Skibby was asking earlier when we were still talking about you, ETs, was why are they coming to Earth, or why were they coming to Earth? What's the purpose of them wanting to take us on board, and why do they come?
Yeah, well, I think we've got a pretty good handle on it. What we've seen is an escalation of contact starting from the atomic age, coinciding exactly to when we could destroy our planet and ourselves each other. This is when contact ramped up, because evidence shows they've been contacting us forever. There's really good evidence that contact goes way back to Egyptian times and Greek, Roman, Middle Ages, ancient India, but it really ramped up. It's like, what's going on here? I think we've got a really good handle on why. Because when people are taken on board, one, they're physically examined. This is when they're often healed. Genetic material is collected, not of just humans, but animals and plants. So we appear to be at the end of a cycle where, life on Earth is in existential crisis danger. They're collecting genetic material. This is one of their agendas. That's one of the reasons they're here, to uphold our genetics, which are being badly damaged from gamma radiation because of the collapsing of our magnetic fields and pollution and pesticides and so forth. Another is 100% to just guide people, because they will pull you on board. And if you're not in complete terror, they will talk to you about your personal life, who you're going to meet, what career path you're choosing, this sort of thing. Spreading knowledge, teaching. They will take you down to the engine room and tell you how they power the craft. Why are you using fossil fuels? Here's how we do it. There's case after case of people who've gotten really good knowledge of this and are filing patents on, quote, energy-free motors or perpetual motion devices, this sort of thing. Another is to basically wake a person up psychically. I think this is a big part of their agenda, because
Preston,
this is the rule. People
I've been hearing a lot about this lately with the opening up psychic abilities. Yeah.
Because they realize, if we could do telepathy and clairvoyance and healing, we would be much more inclined to go on the right path. Other warnings, that's another big one. Over and over and over again. If you're going to get any communication, it's going to be warnings against nuclear proliferation, war and aggression, greed and corruption, destruction of the environment, pollution. That's, basically it. It falls into one of those categories. And another is very simple, announcing their presence. That's it. Just to know we're not alone can change a person's life drastically. A UFO encounter is a superlative experience. It affects you physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, psychically. People will quit their bad relationship. They'll quit their career and go towards what they want to do in life. It will change everything. A simple sighting can do this.
Yeah.
Just knowing there's someone out there. So that is, in a nutshell, why they're here.
So there you go. It was that's a lot of reasons.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they be here? If you had someone who is in trouble, wouldn't you help?
Especially if they see us as basically brothers and sisters. That we're all related to each other.
Yeah. All right, we have another question here from Rue Riders. Question, who in ufology today is an inspiration to Preston? And I guess I want to amend that a little bit. And maybe, was there someone that was kind of inspirational to you maybe when you were first getting into the field?
Oh, yeah. I've had really strong influences. I have to say Bud Hopkins really shocked me, because when he was coming out with his research, this was before he was well known. Missing Time was just a hardback book that was really hard to find. And I'm like, gosh, this is exactly what I'm finding. And then he came out with Intruders and, the whole hybrid baby thing. I'm like, well, I have cases of this. So I was, I love the old school. My heroes are Jim and Coral Lorenzen, Donald Kehoe, James McDonald, Leo Sprinkle, Jalen Hynek. Today, I point to Barbara Lamb. She's very inspiring. I love her to death. Michael Schratt, my kind of researcher, boots on the ground, facts only, no agenda, tell it like it is. I love Linda Zimmerman. I think she's a really good researcher. Timothy Good, he's kind of dropped out of the scene, but I love his work. John Mack was amazing. I'm like, yay. Now here's someone who's not talking about ETs as evil invaders here to take over, because I don't think that's why they're here.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of really good researchers out there, and some who are not my inspiration. I'm not going to name names, but I will. One, Phil Klass. He's not a researcher. He's a arch debunker. What a joker. Class dismissed. I don't even want to hear from you.
Yeah.
I love your nice insults.
Yes.
They're
We had some run-ins with that.
Okay, so
Another question.
We're pretty much out of time, but let's see if we can get
a couple more questions.
Keisha's and CMC's, and I think we're going to have to wrap it
up. Preston, from Keisha, Preston's opinion, are they stepping up their timetable for contact?
ETs, I would not say that, no. I think that every contactee out there who's had multiple experiences at some point gets the message that at some point there may be an existential crisis, and the sky will fill with craft, and a time will come when people might be scooped off. I think that, and this sounds like science fiction, but I think this is coming because the message is very consistent. ETs have disclosed. There's enough cases out there. Anyone who worth their salt and doing any research knows this. All you need to do is take a brief look and you'll see that UFOs are real. But I think that they're watching over us very closely. They've worked very closely with people who are trying to help humanity in some way, and absolutely have stepped up contact since 1947, 45 onward. The time is coming when open official contact will occur.
From CMC Air Boss, why don't ETs that visit Earth do a more widespread announcement of their existence? I guess that kind of piggybacks off what we were just talking about there.
I think it's out of politeness and respect for people who aren't ready, perhaps. Because essentially they have. I mean, that's why I wrote the book Schoolyard UFO Encounters, because they have absolutely disclosed to many people. I wrote a book on drive-in movie theater encounters. If you look at the waves of sightings over the years, every 5 or 10 years, there's a huge wave of sightings over an area that leaves no doubt. They did a display over the Capitol of the United States, but probably would have landed if we had welcomed them. We didn't.
Yeah.
So I think there's a couple of things going on here. One is our hostile reaction is preventing it, because we're very divisive. We're filled with hate. We're very aggressive.
Yep.
Well, earlier we were talking about the drones, and when there were some idea that some people said it was extraterrestrial, there are people out there taking pop shots at them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
So they essentially have disclosed, and I think they're doing it in a way that's very, not subtle, but very clever. In a way where it doesn't disrupt business and economics and religion and science, and people can make up their own minds about it without it being crammed down your throat. Because you try to do that and people shut down, they're not receptive, they will turn around. I think they've made the mistake of just doing that, and people basically called them devils or angels and worshiped them, and it just didn't go well. So
agreed.
That's what I suspect is going on here, that they have, but they're doing it in a way that's very concerted. They're doing a very aggressive publicity campaign. Everyone knows what UFOs are on this planet. Everybody.
Yeah. All right, Preston. We appreciate you coming on so much tonight. Real quick, can you talk about a little bit about your newest book and where people can find you to get more information online?
Yeah. Well, my latest, there's Symmetry, which is still doing really well. It's a couple of years old. But also Not From Here, Volume 5, all about the unusual aspects, like ET books, bunch of cases, 20 books, 20 cases where people go on board, get to read an ET book. Sounds crazy, but they're not normal books, obviously. Humanoids and High Strangeness, 20 cases that embrace not only all different kinds of ETs, but the paranormal that comes along with it. I'm doing a sequel to Symmetry. That'll be the next one out. I've got my weekly YouTube podcast. I do a podcast with Dolly Saffron, The Lightgate.
Yep.
It's Monday evening, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on the United Public Radio Network. My books are available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, other online retailers, bookstores. I'm gung-ho. I'm going to keep at this until everyone on this planet knows that, ETs are here. They're not here to hurt, harm, scare, or take over. Don't believe it. If a UFO is shooting at you, it's government. I'm worried about the false flag. So I just hope that people do their own research. Don't go to the government for answers. Go to the contactees and walk, leave fear behind. It's not helpful. Walk in love and truth, and do your best to develop your psychic abilities, and remember that we're immortal beings.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Well, hang out with us just for a moment, Preston. For all you out there, for the medium Jenny Lee, I am Giant of the Frost. For all you listening at another time and another place, we will see you next time. And for everybody who's still hanging out with us in chat here, we are going to go do a quick raid. CMC already has Ex Novia.
But it's Maxie Coon's birthday tomorrow.
Okay. So who are we rating? Ex Novia or
let's
who?
do Maxie because it's his birthday tomorrow.
Okay.
And he's already upset that his birthday's on Valentine's Day. So let's go. Let's go give him some love.
Raid Maxie Coon.
Plus, I think he's playing Jackbox, so go have some fun playing Jackbox with Maxie on his birthday.
Thank you, everyone, for coming in tonight. Thank you for all your wonderful questions. There were so many we couldn't quite get to them all, but maybe maybe down the line we can get around to some more of these wonderful questions you guys have for Preston. Thanks again, Preston, for coming on. We love talking to you tonight. We enjoyed it.
My pleasure.
All right. Here we go. Have a great weekend. Jenny won't be on tomorrow. I am kidnapping her, and we're going to go have a Valentine's Day evening and concert. But we will see you guys soon, and we will be talking about the Teamwear Takeover at Lake Shawnee Abandoned Amusement Park. It is happening. Tickets will be going on sale soon. Yay. We will see you guys later. Take care, everybody.
Bye. Yay.